Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 16 of my Industrial Revolution 3 playthrough. In this episode, we are going to finish up converting our factory to electricity. Enjoy. It's actually a lot less work than it might look like, because now a lot of this stuff is completely irrelevant to the electric age, because a lot of it is from steam. So in the process of upgrading this, we can also remove all of the extra items that we don't need. So the first thing I want to do is suck out as much of this steam as possible, because there's still 200,000 steam that is just everywhere in all of these pipes. So if we hook that there, it will attempt to pump it out, assuming we can get it to fit in this side. And it looks like it's having trouble. It can't make it all go. So the solution to this is we need to find somewhere to put it, because we just don't have anything that runs on steam anymore. And, well, the last thing that we use steam on is basically electricity. We could try to send it over here, and it would be a little weird to try to, say, pipe it in the back. A simpler solution might be to just use the steam engines we have in our inventory and just try to make it disappear that way. So we probably don't even need to have this connected at all. So for now, I'm actually going to remove all of these inserters and try to suck up the steam and the fuel out of these as well. So we'll remove that, hook it up, let it stay connected all the time, and we have access to the storage tank now, and it can hold any type of fluid. Doesn't have to be liquids. So we'll put one here, and actually let's do a valve and throw that in there and say this is an overflow, so if it gets above 80%, it goes into this tank. And this steam derrick, ideally, will always run. It looks like it's at the end of its cycle again, because now it's down to 11.9, but nonetheless, we want to give it priority. So in the event that it's producing steam that cannot be used anywhere, or the steam comes from any other source, it will get sent to this tank. And now it is, because we are desperately trying to pump it out of all these machines here. And it's going to fill up rather quickly. And since we have 6 steam engines in our inventory, how about we just kind of use them? And it's weird using steam engines without the attached boilers, but that's all it takes. And I guess we need a space in here. Give it a light, and this will always be connected. Unfortunately, these steam engines are going to be fighting with these ones. They don't have any specific priority because we don't have any accumulators, and I'd rather not do anything crazy with the pipes. But nonetheless, it should eventually disappear if these are constantly running. And it looks like all of the steam is still in there. So the solution for that is more storage tanks. It's also interesting to note that the pumping speed of the pumps in IR3 are 12,000, not 1,200. So their throughput is rather high. And I'm pretty sure that these pipes are not connected on this side in any way. It doesn't look like it. And yeah, there's definitely still steam way on this side as well. Well, because of that, let's make another pump. Or better yet, how about we just disconnect it from here? How about that one? Because we still kind of want some of this stuff to run for the purposes of science, so we don't necessarily want it all to shut down quite yet. So we'll just hook all that up. Okay, pumping rate is pretty slow now. Guess we'll just leave that connected. So we have removed most of the steam, and now it's time to decide which one of these builds do we keep and which ones do we convert. Well, we're definitely going to want to keep belts, because we're always going to need belts, but now we're looking at copper pistons and copper motors. And if we check the pistons here, it really doesn't go into anything in the electric age. It's all steam related stuff. The motors, it's basically the same. They do go into things like scatter guns, steam roboports, and like basic rotor units, which will then go into our scatterbots or construction robots, but we're not really going to be making many more of these, and we still have a lot of them on hand. So I'm guessing we just don't need to deal with this anymore, because if we took all this stuff out of here, it would give us more space, and it would also clean up our inventory a bit. So that is a priority. Well, we certainly won't need steam pipes anymore. We won't need any of the steam or burner inserters. We won't need the small assemblers. We don't need copper frames, really. Large copper frames? No, not really. The basic engine? Nope, not really. I can tell we don't need the copper capped beams because we're not even holding them. And then right here, we are making the empty cells for steam. However, we could convert those over to the iron canisters. They are more expensive. They take an extra plate, so we'd have to calculate that, but they hold twice as much steam. So that would basically increase our battery capacity. It's a way of looking at it. So that we don't want to keep, but we'd want to reuse it. So at least that tells us that we have a great deal of stuff here that is just not required anymore. And we have our new heavy roller with 50 robots, and we probably want to use them for this, because this is going to make an incredible mess. Basically, all of this is no more. Also, we'll want to remember that we don't want those in our inventory anymore. So, remove the pistons. Looks like the motors are already gone. And I guess while we're here, we can try to convert this. First of all, get rid of all the junk. And also upgrade everything to their electric versions. And then from here, we can kind of figure out exactly how things are supposed to be placed. And it will basically maintain the same balance. And since we left ourselves some space, it means that we can just place the power poles every 3 of them or so. And then down here. And it would operate, but we are full on belts. It might be worth checking to make sure that our inserters are fast enough here, because now these machines are twice as fast if they are electric. And right now they're at 2 per second, and that is the speed of most of this, with the exception of the rods. We do pump the rods out at 2.5, but we don't need them at 2.5, so that means the setup is good. And we've got our module inserter set up to give it productivities if it can take them, but otherwise not. And I suppose, I don't think anything out of this small electric assembler can take productivities, but just to keep those bases covered, we'll do 2 of these. And it'll complain because it can't use productivities, but it also doesn't matter because it still puts them in there. So the small ones can only take 1 module, while the big ones take 2. Originally, without modules, the small ones are significantly more energy efficient, but with modules, they're actually quite close, where it's 42 kilowatts for the small one and 48 for the big one. Oh, and 1 more right there. We got another lab research done, so now we're doing 0.342. And we've got 1 more queued up, and then after that, we can place the additional labs to get it up to 100%. And how's that steam doing? Oh, pretty good. It's actually using it faster than we can make it, which is fantastic, because that's what I wanted to see. Okay, well, time to pull more stuff out. Yep, there you go. Have fun. We're not going to need the basic engines. It's so bad. So much junk. It's nice seeing all of our minibus kind of being removed and shortened, because it's just not necessary. And this is precisely why I made a minibus in the first place, and why I was saying don't go nuts, because it didn't really take that long for all of this stuff to become outdated. So why even bother making something substantial for it when it has no purpose anymore? And we're gaining extra space, and I'm kind of hoping that we can take our long minibus and kind of squish it down and make it fit here. And actually, on that note, we could do red belts. The recipe is very similar to yellow belts, except now it is an iron item and it requires rubber. But we might as well. We have a build for yellow belts, and doing the same thing for red will probably work pretty well. Since we're here, we'll research fast loaders, even though we're probably not going to automate them right now. And it looks like we didn't research the standard electric stacker. And we are doing builds, so it's possible that getting an extra +1 on our non-stack inserters might come in handy. I'm trying to avoid doing too much research because it does require glass, and our stone is becoming extremely limited. We're at 9%, and I really don't want to make a second mine out here in Biterland, because we kind of need the stone for walls, and we also need the stone for landfill to actually make the walls straight in a lot of these places. So we're really not at the point where we can make a big wall yet. However, one thing I noticed is that you see these green dots here that are slightly different colors than the rest of the trees. Well, those are rubber trees. So you can see rubber trees from the map if you just look really carefully. So you can definitely see like a line of trees down there, a line of trees there, some over there. So you don't necessarily have to wander around the map looking for them. Wonder if there's anything else on the map that has a special icon that I can't recognize right now. At some point I'll have to go out there and explore. At least the gas fissures show up though. And one cool thing is, well, we found more oil out here, but we have polluted steam, which is the other gas fissure that you can find, and it's essentially geothermal power. So what that is it's kind of like the steam derrick we have now, except you have to clean the steam first before you can use it. But anyway, we'll keep moving, and actually we might run out of fuel here since this isn't actually connected to anything anymore. But that's fine. Alright, let's get it back down to basically the last thing here. And we were delivering some wood here, but we don't need it anymore in trashed inventory. Might as well clean up the belts while we're here and make a huge mess again. But anyway, we got that taken care of. And, well, we might as well start the process of getting rid of all this junk here. Like we did with the copper frames and everything, we need to come in here and add in the other intermediates we know we don't need anymore, like copper pistons. And just standing there does so much. Kind of just need to grab stuff and stand over here and see what doesn't get pulled out of our inventory. So we didn't pull out the motors, and some things aren't getting pulled out just because we have so many of them. We don't need to make a bunch of slots for it. As long as we get something in there, it'll start getting handled. Although some things that we just have a lot of and we know we don't need them, we can just kind of toss them in there to make things simpler. Well, there we go for now. Inventory is complete junk, but we know we don't need any of these inserters, those undergrounds, those steam machines, any of these, and so much junk. Alright, well, one thing we know we're going to need are steam canisters, and now we will have access to the circuit network to make these automatically. Let's see here, kind of want to move this stuff around, so we definitely don't need any of that. And this thing, let's see if we can convert it. So the iron is plenty fast, and I'm imagining that means the rivets will be plenty fast as well. We do need to get this thing to reach, and it has to reach from all the way up there. And we'll figure out the charging system in a second. So placing it back in, yeah, it probably should be designed in this way just so it lines up with the other machines, and they're all the same size. So plopping it in there basically works right from the start. Might as well keep putting these power poles at the same distances so everything gets covered. But that very quickly made what we needed. So this is one thing we're still going to need the steam for. Basically, we need a circuit condition on this inserter, and actually let's make it a tin pallet so it doesn't get completely filled up. We want to have some amount of empty canisters in here, but not so many that we won't be able to do the request for them. And then they will be inserted here. And now we need a canning / barreling machine, which does run on electricity. We probably could use the steam one if we really wanted to, but no big deal. And we move this one out of the side. I guess we could also just kind of move everything just a little bit more. But basically it'd be like this, and these barreling machines can take like efficiencies and productivities and whatnot. And they do use a reasonable amount of power, so we might as well. And unfortunately that means we do have a pipe we have to connect. We might as well just go directly here, because all these other pipes are going to be removed. It seems like with IR3 it tries to keep the fluids inside the pipes as you pull them up, and that's part of the pollution system. So don't worry too much about that, but let's pull basically all of this out. Might actually take the robots a second because, no, there's so much junk. Don't need the copper boilers and the offshore pump. And power ran out. Well, that's not good. I must have unhooked something. Ah, that's a short pipe. That's why it didn't reach. So, hook that up. Everything's fine again. That does mean, though, that this has to have priority above all else. So this piping is going to be kind of a little strange, but I think it'll be fine. It does mean we probably want to have a buffer tank in here. And a one-way valve to make sure it doesn't go back the other way. So that'll make sure that doesn't happen again. And we need lights and things. As it turns out, But now we have a circuit network. At some point we'll probably want to automate this stuff, but for now we don't really need to worry about it. Especially because right now all we want to do is basically a little bit of red wire. We'll put that there for now. And it doesn't let us connect the wire, so I suppose that is a disadvantage to the pallets, is that they cannot accept circuit network wires. Alright, so for this, we can do an everything, but how about let's just use the actual part to make sure there's no issues. So if it's less than 50, it's allowed to run. And then we hook this up. The steam, if it was there, goes in here. There's very little steam right now, so it's going to take a little while. But it would hook up. So it's time to make some more requests. We don't need steam cells anymore. Now we need steam canisters. And we'll start to get them. And also, these canisters are going to be stuck in like all our roboports and vehicles, so you might need to use or drive things a while to finally get rid of all these extra steam cells. Let's use our steam pipe interface a little bit more here. Oh, that power pole just doesn't reach, so I guess this will be temporary. However, if we switch this with Shift-E to be out and made a request for full steam cells, then that will clear out any steam cells we have and recover the steam. And actually, this is something I kind of want to check. Can you recycle a full steam cell? You cannot. It has to be the empty cells. So you do have to drain them, and I guess that makes sense because there would be a small explosion if you tried to recycle it when it had resources in it. Looks like we're about to be done on lab research speed. Things are finally starting to pick up around here. So let's say we wanted to do transport belts. Looking at the recipes, it's essentially the same thing, even takes the same amount of crafting time, but it requires one rubber and you only get one belt instead of two of them. The underground requires 2 more belts because it has 2 more underground length. The splitter is basically the same, but it requires a circuit now, which will be fun to get there, but at the same time, we could just use our personal logistics for that. We shall see here. So we definitely want to pull as many of these cells out as we can. Our research upgrade is done, and this is as fast as it's going to be for the time being, so we can kind of compare it that we have 0.607, so we want at least that much with this. So how about we do 2 more lines of them? This should be some pretty substantial research compared to what we're used to. And there we go. Now we're looking at 0.72, which is faster than we're making it now, and that means we have maximized that part of the factory. And looks like we don't even need this tank here anymore. And we got our 50 cells. And all of this junk is in here, but it's one more piece of junk to throw in. Empty steam cells. And we'll throw the rest of them in here because we already have them in our inventory. And you're just going to keep finding them for a while because they're just in all of your stuff, in all of your vehicles, in all of your roboports. So you're just going to have to operate things for a while until they get cleared up. But we've already built a setup that does belts, and although this one will make belts slower, the general design should basically be the same. The main thing that's going to be different is that our ability to make red belts is now going to be half of what it was before. And the question is that okay? Probably. I don't think this thing's ever really been taxed when it came to making belts. Well, the cool thing about this is now that we have done it, we can just take the entire thing and move it over. The only problem is we got to pick up all these belts and make a big mess. But there it goes. We can move these lights around a little bit now. And power production is doing okay. With all those efficiency modules, we're just not using that much power right now. Although, I didn't switch any of these recipes over, which is going to change pretty much all of this. So, whoops. And you saw it complaining about not having any fuel because it is trying to fill these up with the old style of steam cells. So basically, all of this just gets switched to the iron equivalent. I guess for now, we can turn off the fuel manager so we're not getting that warning. It'll still keep the fuel that's in here. All of this is going to be iron, so it needs to line up on the end. Okay, that's mostly good. We still have the matter of getting these basic circuits in here. And we could probably do some personal logistics for this with the transfer plate. And looks like that thing ran out. But I think we're going to need the fuel manager for it. here we go. It's probably still going to be whining about the other things, but at least for now, it still operates. Yep, so we'll turn the manager off. Get that lined up with as many things as possible. Put another one lined up right there. Let's just drop in a few circuits. I imagine one stack is fine because it only needs one circuit per splitter. So it's just not going to make very many. Alright. Let's see if this works. Well, we do need rubber too. So it's not going to work without that. Well, we can avoid changing too much about this if we just have a delivery belt coming in from the side and sort of just jumping over all this stuff. It's kind of funny to do it like that, but this will get the job done. And I guess I'll just center these pads around the belts that they are servicing to make it a little easier to understand. And there we go. It's all running. Kinda need to start cleaning up the inventory again. But let's get our red belts in here. And we need to make the requests, and let's just make them wherever it makes sense, I suppose. It's kind of a losing battle to attempt to have this be perfectly sorted. So how about 2 stacks of reds, the undergrounds, the splitters. Step on the plate, it gives us everything. Okay, next step in line here, working our way down, is now all of the various simple intermediate components of copper, tin, and bronze. So do we need any copper gears for anything? I mean, kind of. Like if we wanted to build another heavy roller, but at the same time we could just grind all that out and just handcraft it for one go. It doesn't really seem worth it to carry it just for that one edge case. Tin gears are absolutely a no. Copper rivets, kind of. Like to make heat sinks. But we don't even have those unlocked yet, and we can just add them in later if that became relevant, because we might very well automate them by the time heat sinks are a thing. And it looks like we already decided that we didn't need bronze rivets for anything. Copper plates, I mean, like scattergun turrets, but we already have a couple of those in our inventory, and we're not going to be building a wall with them. So it's not really something we need to make a lot of. Tin plates, they do go into transfer plates. However, why would we want to carry around tin rods and tin plates when we could just carry around the transfer plates instead? And like to make tin pellets, I suppose, but we could also just make those from the tin ingots themselves and just handcraft them, because in the end we just don't need very many of them. So I think we don't need those tin plates. Copper rods, they do kind of go into some random stuff, but if that's actually going to be relevant, or if it's going to be automated, who knows? But it seems like it's not really worth carrying around. And the tin rods are the same thing. Bronze rods, same. And the bronze plates, yeah, don't really go into anything. We do have these bronze capped beams, and the things that it go into are things we're already making, so we don't need that either. So it's time to generate the junk again. I guess I'll turn the fuel manager on, so hopefully we start sucking those into our roboports soon. So we have lots of random things on this list we don't need anymore, like any of these plates, the rivets, beams, rods, and of course we are going to need to have these reinforced bronze plates, but they actually only go into the green packs, so we certainly don't need those in our inventory. But we are going to need this manufacturing area to continue to make science, and unfortunately the green science is being manufactured right here, so if we put this all the way out here, we would just have to move the resources over. So for now, how about we just leave this here and see what else takes up this spot, and then see if we actually don't have to move it. Then here's the scatterbot stuff, but we're not really going to need that either. You can see it pushing the steam through when it's picking up machines, so it absolutely is trying to save the steam if possible. So lots more random stuff to include in here, like gears and rivets. And the reason why I'm not just dumping these in here without doing this is because later machines we pick up might create this junk in our inventory, and we just don't want it to be in our inventory anymore, and it would be a lot easier just to crush it and let it go to where it's going to go. So because of that, making these filters helps take care of that, but at the same time, if we have any extras, instead of waiting for the filters to actually catch up, we can just dump them now and get rid of them. But at least when we're looking at our inventory, we can use what's in there to determine what the filter should be first. and filled up. I mean, we could jack this thing up with speed modules. That would certainly finish the job much faster. At this point, I'm wondering if we should even be carrying ingots at all in our inventory, because we so very rarely use them. Plus, it bothers me having like a bronze ingot just up there. Basically get rid of most of it. Still might want to have iron for something, and certainly glass, so we'll keep that. But that means we don't need any of this. Let's make a chest. For storing stuff we might actually want to keep later, but we don't want to crush yet. So let's put it over here. Things like extra scatterbots, extra bronze cartridges, and like we don't need our extra shotgun or these copper cartridges, so we can throw those in there. And we could save some slots by throwing the rubies and the diamonds in there too. Just hopefully we don't lose them. Now it looks like the steam for our inserters is about to run out here. That's because this steam derrick is going incredibly slowly. It does mean, though, we probably want to have some sort of logic for future situations where this will not provide enough steam. Because right now it's essentially doing nothing, and it's not making enough. Which means it could happen again. So how about we do a pipe out of the back of this one, and then we'll do a pump here, hook it up. It's kind of hard to see, but we're hooking it up to the small buffer tank, and that fills up to 2.5K. So how about if it is below 500 or 20%, it will run, and that steam won't go back into the system because of the one-way valve there. And it can also be powered by this setup. So there we go. We stole a little bit of steam. That will make sure that there is always a little bit in supply here. And it's kind of convoluted how it's going around in a circle, but normally that derrick will only be supplying steam to this one place. It's just at its worst point right now. So the performance isn't very good. And we're probably, yep, about to run out of iron. And this is another vehicle that's running on steam cells, and it's about to run out. And that's just going to kind of keep happening. As you operate your various vehicles, eventually they're all just going to switch over. Or you can do it manually, but I prefer to use the automatic system and let it just kind of happen. It might glitch out for a second when it does. It's definitely complaining about not having the cells anymore. Coming in. Grabbing our full 80 stacks. And there we go, it sucked it in there. So now it's running on the better steam canisters, and they hold twice as much power. Well, now we're at the part of the factory that we might actually want to move, because most of this we actually want to keep. So we have to convert this as well as pick it up. The beams will have to go back to here, but that should be okay. After it's been moved over there, it'll actually stick out reasonably far. So let's see here. I guess for now we can just kind of get rid of this. And then every machine in here needs to be switched over to electric. And every single piece of junk needs to be removed. Okay then, hopefully we did this correctly. And we can just pick up basically all of it. And lots of junk in the inventory once again. That should be a fast way of getting all those cells out of there. Of course, it confuses the robots for a little bit, but steam everywhere. Fortunately, it put the steam cells back in on certain roboports because it didn't have enough of the canisters. So I might have to do that a couple more times. So time to drive back and have all of the junk in all of our inventories sucked out if possible, but it's still got so much work to do. Okay, let's try the roboports once again here. Because when we do that, it pulls the old cells out. Let's just dump them in there. So now if we place this, everything should be good, but we do have to get it positioned correctly. And it's actually positioned slightly higher than these other machines. I don't think we have to keep them all perfectly in line here. If we put it like this, it would be evenly spaced with everything else. And we connect all this to keep it going down the line. And if we don't put the items back into these pallets, there's going to be a lot of junk created. And because we gave it spacing for all of our copper pipes, it means that there is sufficient spacing for the power poles as well. And that steam derrick is now down to 7.3 per second, so it's gonna reset pretty quickly here, but it goes down really slow at the end. Alright, good news is it looks like we are finally through all of these steam cells, which means we can stick with the iron ones now. Okay, we have some of our remaining buildings here, but also we have this stuff up here, so it looks like we'll be able to straighten up our bus. Of course, anything else we add is going to do that again, but what can you do? So those are the upgrades. Remove all of the junk pipes and inserters. So kind of have to be careful how we do this without completely messing stuff up. Okay, let's do this. And we don't need any of that. We also don't need it to actually connect just yet. Okay, we should have most of this set up to see it start operating. There might be some missing components in here, but I'm also kind of running out of inserters and things, so at some point we just have to hook it up and see what happens. One thing we can do is upgrade the minibus to red belts, because as you can see, we are starting to be able to use enough of the resources to where this is starting to matter. So let's start upgrading everything, at least at the point where the belts combine. Probably won't matter, but I guess we can upgrade these little spurs as well. Shouldn't need red belts for any of the wood stuff, so we'll just leave that yellow. But there we go. And now the red belts show up on the mini-map. Certainly some of our setups will not be able to supply resources fast enough, but we'll deal with that when it happens. And one advantage of switching over to electric is most of the machines are twice as fast now. So all else being equal, we should be able to keep up. So we gotta run through here and find out which things aren't running and why. That has no pistons, so it needed to have a long-handed inserter there. This one needed it as well. Otherwise, everything seems to be good. Alright, well, the last little bit that we've been holding on to for a while now are these two setups here. So let's get them converted over as well. Let's do this one first, because there is a panel here, so it might get in the way of the lights. So we plop this in there. Of course, we're out of inserters. But making lots of resources, and it looks like we're basically using up pretty much all of our iron now. And yeah, we basically are. So at some point we might need to expand this. But 7.5 a second for now is probably okay, because we're filling up a huge amount of buffers. And the modules. And that makes the bronze plates, which only have one purpose, and that is the science. Looks like we are short on glass here, but it's more of a throughput thing than anything. And that makes sense because we made these machines twice as fast, so they will need twice as much input belt. Upgrading iron should probably wait until we have trains and have the delivery of ore automated, because otherwise we're just going to be making tons and tons of trips to try to keep that stocked up. Let's see, this stuff isn't running, so why not? Ah, it is missing its input inserters. At least a couple of them were. Not that there was much iron available anyway, but at least we're starting to make that science again. Last thing on the end here, we needed to make the lights. Let's put it here. Move things up a little bit, which will cause it all to be aligned correctly. Basically just looking at the inventory and seeing what requests are we making that might not be supplied. The last one is probably the copper wire, and that's a pretty straightforward thing to make. We can do that anywhere. Okay, let's pull out the very last remnants of the steam age by getting rid of those pipes. And it looks like the extra steam is piling over. Does that mean the derrick reset? Yep, basically it's up to 50 again. So the only thing we're using this derrick for now is to charge our steam canisters. And some of it is being sent over here, and that totally filled up, to power the inserters for our electricity. But other than that, it's just turning into electricity and that's it. So the process of electrification is finally complete. And we have lots more space here for more items on the end, but also it'll be much easier to expand now. Well, from here, we should probably pick the other things we haven't dealt with yet. However, that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.